picture and see exactly what's going to happen, and they've come back. So what do we need to go build, all these expensive Atlas boosters for, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the nonsense that's into it. And, what has kept my feet to the fire here is a couple of different things. One is that I'm one of the few researchers in this that actually this has been my full-time profession for nearly a decade. This is what I do 24/7, 7 days a week. And I get a lot of mail from people all around the world. They don't know each other, but yet they keep talking about the same things. They talk about tsunamis. They talk about terrible volcanic eruptions, two suns in the skies. And there's these recurring themes keep coming up. And I'm seeing this from the dreamers. I call them the dreamers. On the other side of the equation, I see the disinformation that's being launched against this topic. And it is not run by fruiters and crank, vulgar teenagers who think that they're really adults by using foul language. It's not them. What I'm seeing is a massive, well-coordinated, well-funded, and well-executed disinformation campaign to do one thing and one thing only: create confusion. They can't make the topic go away because it touches on something very deep in each and every one of us. But what they can do is fracture the rational thought process we use in the West, where we start with one fact and build a creative link of facts till we get to a conclusion. All they have to do to break the chain and destroy it is take out one link. And that's what they do, and they do it with surgical precision. Now, seeing that has done more to keep me involved in the topic than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I'm here.
Interesting. All right. So, there's tons of things that I do want to address in terms of that. It's interesting also that you mentioned the way NASA came out after the movie came out. I think his name was David Morrison. They even did a YouTube clip with it. He claims that they have gotten letters from people and young people who are extremely worried about what's going on, and he even claimed in the clip, I think, that they received letters from people who tried to take their own lives or something like that because they were so scared of what is coming in the future and whatnot. And it's interesting the way that they've touched upon this area and with the certainty, again, obviously, that they know, just as you say, what is going to happen and whatnot. But if we can go in a little bit more in detail in terms of Planet X later and talk about some of the modern things that are happening, some of the signs for this and some of the evidence for that and so forth. But what I'd like to do then is go back into history, as it were, because I think the most interesting aspect of this whole story actually comes from the mythological record, the record of what our ancestors pinned down in terms of history and so forth, and what might actually have happened on this planet in the past, because it seems that something has been happening in terms of catastrophe. Just as you mentioned, it's a topic of tremendous upheaval. Something is what was happening here on this planet, and one of these areas then that we can find collaboration in, so to speak, is the Kolbrin Bible. But why don't you give us a little bit of an overview, I guess we can say, of the area of the Kolbrin Bible, where it came from, when it was dug out, so to speak, when we found it, and some of the things that are mentioned in the Kolbrin Bible.
Yes, the Kolbrin Bible was, and also I have to tell you up front, I'm a born-again geek, all right?
Right.
I'm a technical guy, born-hard geek, as they say. And when we were looking at this whole thing and we had realized that the sun was reacting and that all of the bodies were reacting with the sun, we were going, okay, is there an object that is causing the sun to behave this way? And because that then raises another question. Is it a rogue? Or is this a captive object? If it's a rogue object, like, for example, Comet Lee in 1999 flew through the system, created a lot of commotion, a lot of excitement for folks. But that was a rogue object, came in and went out. A captive object is something that's in orbit around your sun, in this case. And if it is doing that and it's in a long period orbit, then it's going to keep coming back and creating this cycle of havoc if it's interacting with the other bodies. And we started looking for information to tell us, all right, are we dealing with a captive or are we dealing with a rogue? And what we found was that even long before we came to the Kolbrin, we're dealing with an object that's in a long period orbit. And this is going back to early reporting in 1983 with IRAS, and that they had found a large body out at the edge of the system, which was then very quickly covered up and silenced. We said, all right, fine. If this is a captive object, then there's going to be human history. There's obviously, everyone has heard of Zecharia Sitchin,
right,
and his work on the Sumerian folklore, and yes, it's there. But, we're looking at, we're going to say, well, you have Sitchin, and, we actually have published an interview with Sitchin. I've dealt with him several times, and I'm very impressed with the man. He's very detail-oriented, very conscientious. But still the same, you have to be able to find some kind of, some way to corroborate what he's saying.
Yeah.
And we started looking, and one of the other researchers on our group, fellow from Australia, said, I'm studying something called the Kolbrin. And it gives us that captive object. The Egyptians called it the destroyer, and the Celts called it the frightener. This text, the Kolbrin, which we now publish as the Kolbrin Bible. And I use the term Bible to honor the ancient Phoenicians, because before Rome destroyed the Phoenician Empire, it was really a marvelous culture, seafaring culture. And they're the ones that really got this thing to a point where you could even see it today. And what it tells us in these ancient accounts that were written about the same time as the Torah, or the Old Testament, was being written after the Exodus. And what the Egyptians tell us in the Egyptian part of it, that's the first part of the Kolbrin Bible. The second part, the Celtic part, was written just in the years after the death of Jesus. And so it really does follow time-wise the Old and New Testament, and it's about the same size. What the Egyptians said was that this object was responsible for the sinking of Atlantis. It was responsible for the Great Deluge, which we know as the story of Noah's flood. And I can tell you there are probably well over 100 other stories that are being uncovered all around the world about Noah's flood. And one I found out in a most interesting way. I was in Hawaii on vacation, and they were saying, here's where Captain Cook landed in Hawaii on the Big Island. And he, one of the first things he did was, whip out the Bible and start talking about the Bible. And they were going through it, and the Hawaiians said, no, Noah does not have an H. It's just N-O-A. And you go, what are you talking about? And he says, we have the whole Noah story. You didn't spell it right. And this is one of the things that the tour guides in Hawaii love to talk about. So you have, and then plus the history of Noah's flood is all over. But what they said was Noah's flood was created by the flyby of this object, as was the 10 plagues of Exodus. Now, one of the things that really validates that is when you look at the flood story, and I don't care which folklore you're coming from, but we can take the Noah, all right? Where did Noah build the ark?
I don't know. I can't remember. Remind me.
Built it up on a hillside.
Right.
Okay. Now, in today's global economy, right, what a stupid thing to do. If you're going to go build a big ark, build it down in the harbor, because if your disaster doesn't happen, you convert it into a hotel and a casino and clean up, right?
All right.
Okay. Boom, you got a Queen Mary. Make money with it. No, what does he do? He builds this thing up on a hillside. So fine, it's closer to the wood. Not that, it's not that big a deal to haul the wood down, right? Why build an ark up on a hillside? Here's why.
Yeah, exactly. He's preparing for something. He knows.
That's exactly. And here's why Noah built his ark up on a hillside. Today,